Okay, so as promised, once I reached 1,000 followers, I was going to begin showing off my entire collection. And I wanted to start with the favorite items in my collection, which are my K98 bayonets. And I have them listed here chronologically. I wish I had all the years, all the makers, and that is a goal of mine one day, but this is what I have so far, y'all. So I just want to start by saying thank you to everyone who has subscribed, subscribed, everyone who's followed so far, and I sincerely appreciate it. It really keeps me motivated to keep collecting and learning. So let's just get right into it. The first one I have here is going to be a Gebruder Heller. And this is a 1935. And the reason I know that is because during the early stages of rearmament, the Third Reich government was very limited in the amount of weapons they could produce. So instead of marking this Gebruder Heller 1935 and kind of obviously giving that away, they used codes. So I'll show you what I mean by that and what I mean by G date. So first of all, let's just show that this is a matching number example, which simply means the numbers on the scabbard match the numbers on the blade. So we got 7218. And that's kind of crudely marked, but that is 7218. There we go. Now, like I said, this is a G date. Instead of say, Gebruder Heller 1935, we have this strange code here, which is 7.178G. Now, 7.178 indicates the maker, which again is Gebruder Heller, and G indicates the year in which it was produced, which would be 1935. Now, if this was a K date, which would indicate 1934 production and made by the same maker, it would say S.178K. And those 1934 examples, those were the first year they started producing these sneak code bayonets as well as pistols and rifles. So those K dates are very desirable. I was fortunate enough to find this one on eBay, and one day I will have a K date, but this is the earliest one I have. You can see here that the frog is in excellent condition, still has very white stitching, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not an expert on frogs, but I believe these are brass rivets. And you can see here what's interesting about these G dates. I've seen a variety of different finishes on these blades. Now this one, as you can tell, has got a very nice blade, but it's almost got a black finish to it versus that deep blue that you like to see. When I first procured this one, this was an eBay find, it was covered in cosmoline. And I've wiped most of it down, but I kept a little bit of it on there since I kind of want to maintain some of that original look. You can see there by the tip, that's definitely some original cosmoline. And I'd like to think that the years it spent covered in that cosmoline kind of gave it this darker finish. However, they didn't really cover the scabbards with cosmoline, but you can still see that real dark finish as well. Very fine condition scabbard, very few nicks and knacks. I mean, you can really hardly see any of them in this sunlight, in this daylight, which is basically the biggest way to indicate if you have some sort of damage or any sort of nicks or knacks on your piece. So all in all, a very nice G date by Gebruder Heller. Again, that is S.178. There's a list of codes that you can find online. And pardon me for 1 second, get this back in the scabbard. There we go. And before y'all say anything, I just moved recently. I cannot find my gloves, so these will all be wiped down afterwards. Please do not start, bitching in the comments. I promise that these will be wiped down. Now, this is probably the most recent acquisition. This is an Elite Diamond, which is a very desirable producer. They were originally a bicycle manufacturer in Germany that was commandeered, obviously, by the Nazis to start making bayonets for the Third Reich. Now, kind of similar to the Gebruder Heller over here, you see a very dark blue finish to the blade. Now this blade really is quite a stunner. Let's see if I can get a better shot of the, yeah, there we go. It's not quite in focus, there we go. But this blade really kicks ass. It's probably got the deepest, darkest blue out of any of the pieces I have. And the pommel does have a little bit of wear to it, but again, something I can certainly live with. And let's see, just to prove it's got matching numbers, 5614 and 5614. Now, like with the G dates, this was still produced with a code S/185 that is for Elite Diamond. And in this particular case, it does have the year on the spine of the blade, which is 36. So, like I said, these are in chronological order here. The first one here is 35. This one here is 36. I got this frog separately, and I don't know, I just figured it looked good with the piece. I'm not a frog expert. I know there's some of y'all in the comments will say, oh, that's not period correct, yada yada. But you know what? I'm sure many of these bayonets were not matched with frogs that were, exactly from that year or from that vintage. I think it looks good with the piece, and I'll keep it that way. So following that one, might be the nicest one in my collection, I'm not sure. And a good way to tell without looking at the blade is looking at the scabbard condition. And you can see this scabbard is phenomenal. There isn't any sort of, let's just kind of compare it to something that's a little more oxidized. Not rusted, just oxidized. You see how this one's kind of brownish? This one has maintained pretty much all of the bluing. The scabbard is in phenomenal, the frog is in phenomenal shape. Fits like a glove to the bayonet. It isn't marked, but I can imagine it's been here its whole life. The bluing on the pommel, there's a couple little tiny pitting marks. It could maybe use a wipe down. There's a little bit of dust on there, but really tremendous condition. And I'll show you, what makes this thing so special. Now, guys, you really don't want to button these too often as it can wear out the leather, but for aesthetic purposes, I decided just to do it for the video. Now, let's take this bad boy out of its scabbard. And you can see here, this is a lot more typical characteristics of what you would see from a K98 blade. Really nice, deep, almost ice kind of blue versus kind of that blackish blue that we saw on those first two pieces. This thing shines like a mirror. Very little runner marks here on the tip. Very few. I mean, you can barely see anything. Typically, what you'll see where those marks kind of exist already, you will see bluing loss to where it's just bare steel. Don't see any of that here. And those two spots that you can make out, well, about here and here, that's from where the runners stop in the scabbard itself. So you're always going to see those on even the nicest, mintiest K98 blades. And yeah, this one just killer. It could use probably a wipe down, but try not to wipe these down all too often, as it can actually remove some of the bluing. And you can see here the back of the pommel is just in excellent shape as well. This one is by EUF Horster. It's a 1938. Now, by this point, they were kind of putting a middle finger to the Versailles Treaty and just outright producing arms with the maker's name. So if you can make that out, it does say, golly, let's see, 1938. Gosh, might just have to take my word for it. I'm operating with one hand. This is a 38, y'all, and again, could very well be the nicest piece in my collection. Now, moving on. This is kind of a rare one, folks. This is a, geez Louise. It is a Clement and Young. I had to think about it for a second. I got this out of an estate. There was a collector who, just like me, focused on Army daggers, Luftwaffe daggers, and K98 bayonets. And when I saw this laid out on the table, along with about 12 other minty ones, I was drooling and, you know, had to excuse myself to the bathroom, if you know what I mean. The reason I went with this one is because, number one, these Clement and Young pieces are quite rare, and it came with a frog, and I just loved the patina on this. Now, let's just, you know, do a little comparison again. This is the frog from the Horster that I just showed, and not really doing it a lot of justice, but you can see how this one's a lot more oxidized than this one, right? And that's fine with me. This one probably hasn't seen a lot of usage, but likely sat in a garage or somewhere where it wasn't really protected from the elements for a long time, and therefore, you know, developed a bit of a brownish patina. And that's a lot different than finish loss or rust. This one came with this frog here. Again, another button frog that I try to leave just like that so I don't damage the leather, just for the sake of aesthetics and showing y'all what they should look like when they were used. I did button them, but I typically just leave them like that as to not wear the leather out. So this one, I believe, is also a 1938. And let's just do a number check here. So we got 1660, which is the year Yo Mama was born. Sorry about that. That was so stupid. 1660. Okay, so we got another matcher. And let's take this son of a bitch out. I need to stop cussing in these videos. Now, you'll notice this has got a matte finish on the blade here. Not like those shiny ones we just showed y'all. This is a lot more, well, matte, for lack of a better word. And you can see it's, it might have a little bit of finish loss slash pitting. Not really pitting per se, but again, it just doesn't have that high polished reflective look that you normally see. And that's actually what really drew me to this bayonet. I was like, wow, I haven't seen a blade quite like this. Still very blue. And on the reverse, you see kind of the same thing here. You don't see a lot of wear and tear. It's just the way the blade was manufactured. And by this point, by I believe 1938, let's just make sure. 38, yeah. So by 38, they were putting the full manufactured name on the blade. And this one just really stood out to me, all because of the, the finishing on the blade. Never really seen anything like it. I really like the natural patina it's developed. Again, no pitting. It's just kind of turned a bit brown just from oxidization. So from a distance, it looks just like any other bayonet, but you get up close and you notice, that's pretty unique. So certainly a fan of this one. Apparently in 38, they were one of the rarest producers. Clement and Young, my friend has a chart that, whoops, I probably should have included in the video, but yeah, one of the rarest producers for that year. Okay, we still got a few to go. This one here is a 39 Carl Eichhorn. Now, if you guys know anything about German blades, Carl Eichhorn was definitely the most prominent blade maker during the Third Reich. And you can see here, in comparison to some of the other ones, this one's got a lot of finish loss. But at the same time, it's got a lot of character. You can see here that the scabbard has kind of, don't want to say grayed out, but certainly has a lot of patina and age to it. And this one here is a 1939. I was able to find a nice 1939 marked scabbard to match this here bayonet. And I think, it sort of just needed something to go with it. I like to, typically, if I can, I like to have frogs with my bayonets. Another indicator that it's got some age and use is the frog lug here. Let's see, in comparison to something like this, which was on that nice 38 Horster, you can see a big difference in condition between these two here, right? This is very blue, this is very blue. This has got basically no bluing left, and whatever bluing is left on the scabbard has turned. Now, that doesn't really bother me. I kind of like the way this one has aged. It's got kind of some stripage on the pommel, and the wood grips are still in phenomenal condition. This frog is probably the nicest quality one that I have. Very thick, rigid, and it's got the painted aluminum rivets, which means it is after, I think after maybe 38 or 39, they started painting them, and they changed over from, forgive me if I'm wrong, but from the brass over to aluminum. Anywho, let's take a look at the blade here. Hold on, guys. Oh boy, a little stiff. Now, any sort of discrepancies from the exterior can be forgiven by this pretty killer blade. Again, like I was talking about with the early Gebruder Heller, these marks are what you typically see on 99% of K98 blades, whether they're in really good shape or whether they're in used shape. The Gebruder Heller, since it had the Cosmoline on it, really didn't have these marks, right? So that's okay. This is normal. And again, it's got the little marks where you will see the runners where they stop, internally in the scabbard. Now this has got pretty killer blade. Yeah. And folks, most people can excuse a lot of exterior. It's got some hairs here I need to wipe down, but a lot of folks can excuse any real issues with the exterior, such as this not being quite as pretty as some people would like. They can excuse those when the blade's really nice, such as this. And let's see, so this is a 39. Like I said, by this point, they were putting the full maker name on the reverse of the blade. And let's just prove the numbers, since I know you guys probably want to see that. What we got? Oh, geez, that's hard to see, huh? Really hard to see. 3169. Can y'all get that? Okay. Carl Eichhorn. And 3169. Suffered a little bit of pitting here. But again, this one's got a little used to it. But with that 39 dated frog, and with the deal I got on eBay for it, I really couldn't say no. It's got the perfect amount of use, in my opinion. I've had some that are damn near, falling apart that I've sold. I used to have 12, and now I have whittled it down to 10. Okay, so let's move on here. This one here is a pretty rare one. This is a Berg & Co. This came from the same collector who sold, well, he passed away unfortunately, but the Gebruder Heller, which is here. So he was a collector of all different makers. So Berg & Co. is a relatively uncommon one. And this one isn't, in stellar condition, but, again, for the rarity of the maker, I could certainly look past any sort of flaws. You can see some nicks and some finish loss on the pommel. Is that a hair? Oh, that was a hair. I thought that was a scratch on that lug there, but not just a hair. And in this light, it's kind of hard to tell, but there is some finish loss. There is a bump right there, but you see how it kind of browns out towards the end there versus up here towards the top of the scabbard. Again, it's very hard to make out. Honestly, it's pretty negligible. So let's get this bad boy out of the scabbard. And again, I will wipe all of these down once I'm done recording this, so don't have a cow. So yeah, here we go. The blade on this one, again, isn't as pretty as some of the other ones. You can see there are more prominent marks from the scabbard runners here and here, and you can see more usage as far as this being taken in and out. Also, if you zoom in, you can see a little bit, some dots of finish loss there. It's not pitting, it hasn't, eaten away at the steel, but there are, clearly some marks of finish loss. So this isn't the, most pristine piece. Doesn't bother me for the rarity of the maker. This one here is a 1940, if you all can make that out. Again, this is a Berg & Co. And yeah, the reverse of the blade, it seems to be a lot nicer. You don't have those really prominent runner marks. In fact, at least here on camera, it's kind of hard to see any whatsoever. Let's see if we can maybe get a better shot of that in the sunlight. Yeah, no, not really. So the reverse has seems to be in better condition than the obverse, which, why don't we just call it the front, y'all? We have to have a fancy name for it. The obverse seems a bit silly, but anyways, and since y'all would like to know, I'm sure, this one is also matching 6917, 6917. Paid a pretty penny for this one. just because I bought it from a collector who bought it from another collector, so he needed to make a profit. As a bayonet freak myself, I just had to bite the bullet and go for it. Now, next one up, this one is a 1940 UF Horster. Again, you can see that that brownish sort of oxidization. Let's see, compared to this one here. However, it's still in really nice condition. You can see the cross guard here, or the hilt, if you will, is still very blue. The pommel's still very blue. It does have a little pitting to it. Let's check the spine out. Oh, spine is still very fine condition. And then the reverse of the pommel. It's got some pitting up top too. Typically the reverse is always going to be a little bit nicer. But this is a Horster piece. These are, if you know your bayonets, the Horsters were the most common. But shit, I could not, pass on a blade of this quality. Very fine blade on this one. Switch hands here. Very, very fine blade. And I wish my camera would focus better, but let's see, there we go. No, come on. Yeah, so interesting, it does have a line down the blood fuller. As you can see, it's got 2 lines. Not sure where the hell that came from, but overall, it's got that mirror-esque finish. And let's just give you a shot of the reverse. Again, damn, okay. All right. iPhone 16, come on. It's supposed to be state of the art, can't even focus. Yeah, it's got a good bit of oil in the blood fuller, but overall, still a killer blade. I could look past a lot of things as long as it's got a blade such as this. So this is a 1940. Let's just prove that to you fine people. 1940. And again, we got matching numbers here. 7362, 7362. All right, so I'm just gonna place this to the side since it is kind of a pain to put it back in the scabbard. Now we are getting towards the end. This piece here is my number one. This is, if the house was burning down, I'd probably grab this and maybe like one army officer dagger. This was the very first bayonet I ever purchased, and it is an Alexander Koppel 1941. There were about, I think 15 minutes left on eBay, and I placed a bid and no one else did. I got this for a price that I don't even want to talk about because this one is hard to find. And in my opinion, these were the best made K98 bayonets of the period. Whoops-a-daisies. Well, that lamp just fell apart. That's great. I'll just hold it like this. Oh boy. So, during, maybe the years of 39 to about 41, they really seem to dial in the bluing. And it's kind of hard to make out here, but let's see if I can maybe get it in the natural light. Yeah, it's still kind of hard to see. But, just take my word for it, y'all. This has got the best bluing out of any of the bayonets I've shown here. Probably better than any of the bayonets I'll ever own. So, starting up top, you can see it's got a very nice pommel, very minimal pitting. Look at that blue. Come on, folks. This hasn't been oiled down in a while. Look at the spine. You know, just screaming blue. It's almost like an old Smith & Wesson or like an old Colt revolver. It just has that blue that you can see from a mile away. This frog here, I've been told, is a Luftwaffe frog because it has aluminum rivets. I'm not a frog expert, but I've had a few people on Reddit and on some forums tell me that this is a Luftwaffe frog. I'll go with it. I'll take that. Now, you can see here, it's got an interesting pattern to the grip. Now, from my understanding, this is a result of early Bakelite. Now, different sort of plastics were mixed together in order to produce what is known as Bakelite, right? Which is a plastic composite. And certain plastics within the Bakelite composite, they aged differently. And over time, and due to the poor mixture, some of the ingredients to these Bakelites would age differently and result in some shine, and others would kind of dull out. So it gives it kind of, I don't want to say tiger stripe appearance, but a very unique sort of plastic patina. And this one really has that down, and that's a feature you do see on a lot of these bayonets, but this one really has a quite interesting pattern. So that's a huge plus for me. You can see the bluing on the hilt is still very nice. Again, the bluing on the pommel here is killer. There we go. That does a better job. A couple little dings here and there. Nothing's going to be perfect, guys. These things are, close to 90 years old. But this one, was my first one and will likely remain in my collection for a lifetime. Enough talking. Let's get this blade out and you'll see why I truly love this piece. It's got by far the craziest, most shiniest, reflectivist blue. Look at that, guys. Look at that. It goes from being basically black, if we have it reflecting off nothing, to reflecting off the daylight here. It turns into a mirror. And this is, not really seen on most other blades, even compared to my nicest one, such as the 38. Well, just for the hell of it, let's get them next to each other. You see that? This is more of an ice blue, still incredibly fine, and actually with a lot less wear. See, you see the runner mark, you see more in and out marks. You don't really see that on this one. So this one has actually been used more, the Alexander Koppel, the 41. However, the finish is really unparalleled, and this is what I've seen from other Koppels of this vintage, particularly 39 through 41, and this one here is a 1941. Now, by 1940 and onward, actually I believe it's after 40, they went back to codes. Now, whoops, FNJ is the code for Alexander Koppel, and I am not getting a good shot of this. It's very lightly marked. There we go. 41 FNJ. Okay, so FNJ is the code for Alexander Koppel. And again, you can just see here the quality of the bluing is really unparalleled. And since you guys are going to want to know, is it matching? Of course it is. We got 3139 and 3139. Like I said, when I first logged on to eBay that day, it was like a day after my birthday. Just got into collecting, really wanted a combat K98. Maybe 15 minutes left on this bad boy, and I won it from a seller who had no previous sales. Took a fat gamble, and excuse me for a second, and you know, walked away with this thing, which again is going to be a lifer for me. You know, my kids and grandkids are going to inherit it. So moving on, this is a mismatch I got at a gun show for like $125. It's missing the screw here for the single screw for the scabbard. You do see that on a lot of pieces. Not the best condition as far as the scabbard goes. Pretty fine condition on the pommel, however. But what really attracted me about this piece is that it has what's known as a plumb blade. And I think you guys know what I'm talking about already. You can see that this blade here is got this reddish sort of patina, and there are a number of theories. I suggest y'all do your own research on this because from my understanding, it has most to do with the kind of the rushed process towards mid to late war pieces where they good Lord, please just focus, where they were not mixing the steel, you know, the steel composite, or whatever sort of metals and chemicals went into the steel, as well as the bluing. They were kind of being rushed, and at the time surely appeared blue, but over time developed this nice sort of plum patina, right? Yeah, there we go. There's a good shot of it. So these are desirable on their own. It's a mismatch. It has a, let's see, kind of a rare scabbard from what I understand. It's got a Duracop 37 scabbard with a 42 ASW. Again, by this point they were using codes. ASW stands for EUF Horster, which I believe I said earlier were the primary manufacturers of K98 bayonets. So I got this for a deal. It really is a conversation starter, conversation piece. If I was outside in the sunlight, you'd really be able to tell how deeply reddish this has turned. So last but not least is perhaps the rarest and maybe the best condition bayonet in my collection. This is also an ASW. If you guys have been paying attention, that stands for EUF Horster. This is what's known as a double date. Double date? What's that supposed to mean? So, a double date, well, first of all, before we get into that, check out the condition on this bad boy. This has been sitting in a drawer untouched, certainly. I mean, there is no marks, absolutely nothing on the scabbard. The pommel is shiny. It's got a couple spots of pitting there, probably just simply from humidity. The spine on there is just spotless. The reverse, I mean, look at that. And towards the end of the war, this is a 43, you could see how they were taking, cuts in the production standards. So you can almost see how the machining marks are kind of bumpy there, a little rigid, right? So not quite as highly finished, but again, the spine, spotless. The grips are incredibly red. The hilt here, I can't remember what I'm talking about. The hilt no pitting really whatsoever. And this has got a phosphate finished scabbard as opposed to the blued finish that you've seen on literally all of the other bayonets I've shown so far. So towards the late in the excuse my voice crack. Late in the war, they started using phosphate finishing on their firearms as well as bayonets. So you can see here, this has got a phosphate finish. It looks a lot like parkerization, like you would see on perhaps like an M1911A1, and just saved a lot of time for manufacturers. Now, like I said, this is a double date. So let me just show you what I mean by that. Let's start with the serial number, 1852. That one is very lightly marked, but you can see 1852 with the V production block, 1852 with the V production block. So the numbers match. However, bit of a mystery here. We have a 44 marked scabbard with a 43 marked blade. From what I understand, these blades were actually manufactured, these scabbards were manufactured mid 43, right? And they were expecting a lot more blades to be manufactured by then. So they started, got a head start, right? By the time, 44 came, they realized they didn't have as many blades as they needed, so they took the 43s that were left over and stamped them with the same serial number that were on the scabbards. So they matched them that way, but they have two different dates. So this represents, certainly an interesting time in the history of World War II in general. It shows the desperation that the Germans were facing, that they were able to let certain things like this slide, given that they had such high standards only, less than 10 years ago, right? So the blade on this one, mint. Just mint. It's got the same sort of, not quite as deep as this one here, but it has that sort of plum patina to it that would be a lot more visible if we were outdoors, but we're indoors, so let's deal with it. But you can see it's really got no wear whatsoever. Has some, in and out marks to it. You can see where that line stops in the middle. That's where the runner stops. It's just very typical wear that you would like to see. Maybe if I were to get it. Yeah, so it almost looks like it's got that phosphate finish, such as the scabbard, but this one has been blued. It's definitely more of a matte blue, and it has definitely turned into a bit of a plumish color. It's hard to tell here. Trying to get you all a good view of it. Well, I hate saying this, but you just might have to take my word on it. Either way, you can see that the blade is pretty much mint. It came with a lot of oil already on it, so I have only wiped it down once or twice and left the original oil on the blade. Yeah, these double dates do command a premium. I actually traded a really shitty Army officer dagger that I got for a bargain for this pretty much mint. I'm not going to even put it back in, but for this pretty much mint double date ASW, aka EUF Horster bayonet. You don't see a whole lot of these. There were other manufacturers who had double dates, so this is the most common double date you'll see. That being said, you still don't see a whole lot of them. So big difference in how the table looks versus how I started, but these are all my K98s, my pride and joys. Again, if the house was burning down, I'd be grabbing that Alexander Koppel. maybe this double date, but this one was my first love and remains my #1 piece. Just wonderful. I'm a huge K98 guy, and these are my pride and joys. And I appreciate y'all tuning in. I appreciate the 1,000 followers. And let me know what y'all would like to see next. Maybe dress daggers, medals, visor hats. We have quite a bit of other categories to cover. So for now, these are my bayonets. Thank you very much for watching, and more to come.